Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunday, February 5th edition of the OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, your wave reporter on all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And I am fresh out of a wonderful hot yoga class where I met some friends and had a great time this Sunday morning and got a look at some of the surf conditions through the wave cams. And it's just another beautiful day here on the Outer Banks. The clouds are rolling in off the Atlantic Ocean as some warm air starts to move up from the south, and we've got a weather disturbance offshore that's starting to usher in some stormy conditions for the southern Outer Banks, and things are getting interesting with small waves here on the northern beaches and larger waves south with some strong southerly winds. On the backside of a high pressure system that came down from the Arctic and caused so many cold temperatures, and now we're involved in a big switch to warm again and some strong winds coming from the south here in the Outer Banks. And I'm just, let's see, what right now I'm looking at the NOAA Geocolor Composite. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out so you can see more of the United States. This beautiful satellite shot provided to us by the scientists at NOAA. And you can see this area of disturbed weather to the south. And the air right now, the flow is moving in from the south on the backside of a weather system that's moving offshore. So we're getting a more southerly flow here across the eastern United States, warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf and the Atlantic. And here in the Outer Banks, we're getting a bit of a warm front also, along with some stormy weather out here. Stormy weather wasn't really expected. The switch to warm was, so this is kind of fascinating to me. And you and I, we are going to study what's happening together. And so right now, let's just make sure we are at now. We've got this big old high pressure system off the US East Coast. It was centered over here yesterday and has now moved on offshore. It's a powerful high, and it was associated with a disruption in the polar vortex. But now it's showing us its warm side. It's dredging up this warm tropical and subtropical air, which is forming a front here across the Outer Banks. And we've got this little low starting to spin up here off Florida, which wasn't really expected. I want to look at the minimum central pressure. Right now, nothing crazy as far as minimums. 1014 millibar system. And we got this big old 1036 millibar high. I'm going to go ahead and advance this. I'm just curious what's going to happen with this storm. Yep, it's going to move on up to the north, and then looks like it's going to trough on out a little bit here off the east coast. And I'm just curious how intense it might become because there is some warm water, a lot of, ooh, it does kind of blow up as it moves offshore. So that's an interesting system. Might give us some bigger waves from the north. 91 millibars is nothing to shake a stick at here off the US East Coast. Let's go to clouds. Um, I'm kind of discovering this thing as you are. So this is looking at a cloud picture for tomorrow. Let's go ahead and back this model up and see. So you do see that warm front ahead of this low that pushes on through. You've got that warm air mass on the backside of the high feeding into this thing. And yep, like a nor'easter type system here off the US East Coast forming up. Kind of an unexpected nor'easter. And yeah, so I know I jumped ahead to forecasts. We don't typically get into forecasts so early, but I'm actually kind of curious because as I was looking at the waves, I'm like, whoa, there's some strong southerly winds. There's some big waves down there at Buxton, big waves down there at Billy Mitchell, and we got small waves here in Jeanette's. We got this dark mass of clouds to the south moving north. Got some rain sweeping overhead, and we're on the backside of the high, and It feels like there's a bit of a change in the air as the weather system taps into that warm, moist air. So it looks like we might have a little bit of a nor'easter forming here for the East Coast. And look at those cloud tops starting to blow up off the eastern seaboard in association with that low pressure system that's starting to form. We got the Gulf moisture getting tapped and the Atlantic moisture with a low pressure off Florida. So something we're going to want to watch. Curious about the wave models, what the wave models are saying, but already here on the Outer Banks, we got 3 to 5 foot waves for the south-facing beaches and winds coming in from the south at about 20 to 30 miles per hour for the south-facing beaches. Curious if there are any gale warnings up. Let's go to the National Weather Service radar. I know I'm doing a real close Outer Banks focus, but this surprise nor'easter ish system is has caught my attention. Yep. So we've got this storm forming here off Florida. We've got the flow of moisture coming in across the Carolinas, which we're seeing along the Outer Banks. I bet we've got, yep, small craft advisories up for the shores and no gale warnings, it appears, as yet. But interesting. I'm gonna look at the models some more. I'm now this storm has caught my interest and is fascinating to me. All right. Um, Looking at the NOAA QPF for the next 7 days, precipitation, yep, we've got this big old swath of heavy precipitation right here off the US eastern seaboard, which means coastal systems are likely to form in this region. And that means waves and possible stormy conditions here for the Outer Banks. Look at that edge. It just like kind of nudges into the Outer Banks. So some of that storminess might be nipping us as these storms move on through. It does look like there's a prevalence for storminess predicted over the next 7 days near the Mississippi region. And also we've got this big old region of storminess up here in the Pacific Northwest, which is pretty typical for this time of year as storms move off the Pacific, and a lesser storminess for California and Oregon. Um, Although California is starting to get some precipitation, though worrying to see parts of southeastern California not getting anything really in each of these models consistently. All right, so getting down to the local observations. This is what first alerted me to the potential for coastal storm. Yeah, I was just out getting some hot yoga. Thought it was supposed to be a warmer, sunnier day today, and it was starting to warm up. It was starting to look sunnier, and then this dark bank of clouds started to roll in as I was heading on back to my house here in Manio. And I'm like, what's going on? And let's check the wave monitors. And what I found was that for the northern beaches, we're getting like 0 to 2 foot waves, pretty calm, pretty glassy, very glassy driving over the sound earlier today. And then looking south, it's stormy. We've got 3 to 5 foot waves down there in Buxton and Billy Mitchell. So it's pretty nuts. Let's look at Jeanette's Pier right now. Conditions are pretty calm. 1 to 2 foot waves, 6 second primary swell, 13 second primary secondary swell, and probably rideable in the range of 1 to 2 foot. Very calm winds out of the southeast at 2 miles per hour. I'm looking outside there right now, and I got this observation like even just 5 minutes ago. And even looking outside right now at the trees, you get a little bit more of a dance in the trees. So I bet we're getting even stronger winds down there at Jeanette's Pier right now as there's a shift in the weather and we get this pulse of energy coming up from the south. So we're already starting to experience somewhat of a storm here. I'm not certain if this storm is going to be too strong of a nor'easter-ish system, but it's unexpected that we've got it at all. There was nothing really in the weather forecast showing this, and I'm just kind of reporting it to you as I'm getting information. Um, right now at Buxton, I'm just heading on down the coastline, so it is worth noting that Avon and Rodanth and esterns, so just down the coast, are also seeing 1 to 2 foot waves, maybe some larger waves now in Avon, slightly larger, but still relatively calm. But then when you get down to Buxton, everything changes. It's the winds are right now, or at least according to the most recent observation from about 5 to 10 minutes ago, winds coming in out of the south at about 25 miles per hour. It's a cross shore flow, just coming right there out of the south. And well, for the south facing beaches, it's onshore, but for the east facing beaches, it's cross shore. And the swells coming in at, there's a primary swell coming at 5 seconds from the south at 5 feet, and a secondary swell coming in out, a different direction, mostly angling out of the east here at around 2 feet. So waves here at Buxton are 2 to 5 feet. The south swell is probably not as much in effect for the east-facing beaches as is for the south, but much larger waves there in association with that 25 mile per hour south wind. Temperatures at Buxton, I didn't really tell you much about the temperatures at Jeanette's. In fact, I probably should just go ahead and tell you all the rest of the information about Jeanette's. I'm really fascinated about this storm though, so my brain is a little bit elsewhere. So yeah, temperatures at Jeanette's right now, air temperature is 48 degrees, ocean water temperature is 51. So the temperatures are warmer than yesterday. And the weather conditions are cloudy, light rain starting to sweep in. Expected high of 53. I don't know, it might get a little bit warmer with that strong southerly wind starting to move in from the south. So this is also interesting. But let's go down to Buxton. I just want to show you the difference in temperature as we get to Buxton. So it's 48 degrees right now at Jeanette's, but all the way down in Buxton with those 2 to 5 foot waves, we've got 61-degree temperatures. So a 13-degree temperature differential between Buxton and Jeanette's. That's maybe 30 miles or so. Um, line of distance between the two. So a huge temperature change in a short distance in just 30 miles. And at Buxton, the weather conditions are just relatively different, a lot stormier with those 25 mile per hour winds coming from the south. Ocean water also big difference in ocean water temperature between Jeanette's and Buxton. Jeanette's Pier 51 degree Fahrenheit ocean water temperature, 65 degrees down there at Buxton. So also a 14-degree change in the ocean water temperature as well. And weather conditions right now at Buxton, rain, wind, expected high today of around 61. May get warmer with that southerly flow. We'll have to see. And then for a third observation, we're going to go down east of Frisco to Billy Mitchell, where the waves are also in the range of 3 to 5 feet, with a 5 foot swell coming in here from the south, being the primary swell, and the secondary swell coming in about 3 feet at 10 seconds coming in from um, the southeast here. And we've got strong winds at Billy Mitchell as well, 24 mile per hour southerly winds, which is onshore with the south facing beach. Air temperatures are also 61 degrees Fahrenheit, so very warm, and ocean water temperature is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, also very warm. Weather conditions are rain, wind, also an expected high today of 61. Very interesting. I'm going to do a little bit more analysis on this potential nor'easter that's developing. It looks like we've got a nor'easter forming now, but before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the 8 to 14 day outlooks. And temperatures are expected to be well above normal for the eastern portion of the U.S., much above normal here for the Outer Banks region and areas north and west, and generally above normal for the U.S. East, below normal for the U.S. West. And I've been talking about this dividing line, which can tend to be a trigger point for storms. Um, but what's interesting is that we do see an expectation for storminess in the central US. It looks like the focus for stormy conditions are here over Southern California, where honestly they need the rain, which could be a good thing. And then by the 8 to 14 day outlook time period, we're expected to see below normal precipitation out here in the Outer Banks, so below normal storminess. Of course, this is not what's happening now. What's happening now is we've got a surprise in the form of a nor'easter. Now I'll look at this. So yeah, it's interesting. So we're expecting to see some potential thunderstorms in the near offshore environment running up to the Outer Banks here. Yeah, not a high percentage chance of thunderstorms, 10% in that zone, but 40% further off, which is also indicative of you know lift in the atmosphere, thunderstorm development, and possible cyclonic storm development. All right, so let's I'm just curious. I want to look at the wind models. Let's go to now. All right, so we've got this big old high pressure system that's creating a massive blow across the Atlantic. That's where most of the fetch is coming from. And we got that little vortex, which is the potential nor'easter, forming along a front, like a warm front boundary that's just kicked up due to the influx of the warm air riding over the cold air and creating some storminess here. And let's look. So right now, we've got some strong winds coming in from the south in the 25 to 30 mile an hour range in the near offshore environment. Let's see how these winds kick up. Actually, let's go back. I want to go more on a progressed basis. 23, 24. Looks like we do get a wind field sweeping over the Outer Banks over the evening hours today, as winds seem to strengthen a bit ahead of this storm that's moving off Florida to the east and northeast. And let's see. Yeah, winds up. We're expected to get stronger winds up closer to where we are as well, up near Jeanette's Pier. Although, well, actually more over onto Pea Island and that region. Let's just go ahead and keep moving this. Um, it's interesting to see this low potentially develop. Mostly a southerly flow, seems to calm down by a little bit, yeah, by about midnight time frame. And then it does look like this low starts to get its act together, although winds are expected to shift to the west behind the storm system and as it moves offshore. Yeah, west and northwest starting to pull into the northwest tomorrow. And then the storm looks like it starts to get pretty strong. Northerly and northwesterly winds here for the Outer Banks. But look out here. I got 60 to 70 mile an hour winds out here in association with this storm. So it looks like a pretty strong storm. We're not going to see those effects here in the Outer Banks, apparently, according to the global forecast system model, but a strong nor'easter nonetheless. Really starting to kick up later into the day on Monday as it heads on off the northeast coast and forming, wow, look at this. Pretty strong, yeah, yeah, very strong nor'easter out here in the storm force range off of Boston. This is, of course, out in the ocean, but not really something that we expected to see. And then here on the Outer Banks, we're looking at mainly northwesterly. So interesting, very interesting. Let's look at the temperatures. Not too cold. Yeah, back down into the 40s looks like. This is yes, tomorrow evening. I'm just going to back up to see what it's expected to be like tomorrow with those west and northwest winds. Um, yeah, so actually not as warm tomorrow, yeah, as you would expect behind a nor'easter. So we've got a warm front moving in, and then on the back side, it's expected to be in the 40s tomorrow. So not as warm a day tomorrow as we had previously expected. And then let's look on into Tuesday and see what happens. Oh, yep. And then, yeah, by Tuesday, it looks like we're expected to get a little warmer here. Let's look at the temperatures through the day, maybe into the lower 50s. So interesting weather conditions expected over the next couple of days, not as warm as was expected. Let's go on into Wednesday. It does look like things start to warm up into Wednesday. Yeah. Let's see. into the 50s, and looking south, yeah, into the 70s. And then let's look at Thursday into the 50s, maybe higher. Interesting. Weather is nothing if not changeable here in the Outer Banks. So I am fascinated to see these weather conditions. Now, okay, so over the next few days, looks like temperature is expected to be in upper 40s to lower to middle 50s. This is new. We're getting a storm system moving in now, and we're going to see the backside of it. It's going to get cooler again on the backside down into the 40s, upper 40s tomorrow. Looks like we'll see. We'll see how things evolve. But not as warm as we were expecting. Okay, you're discovering this with me now as I'm discovering it. All right, so let's look at the waves. Waves for the Outer Banks. And right now, the nearshore wave heights are in the range of 1 to 2 feet, which is what we would expect for the north beaches and the east-facing beaches. And for the south-facing beaches, in the range of 5 feet. Model seems to be about spot on. Moving into tomorrow, on the backside of that nor'easter, the swell shifts around to the north, and we've got 5 foot expected waves coming in from the north. Yeah, I thought that Monday might be a good surf day, but we'll see. Looks a little bit choppy and sloppy and cold. And then on into Tuesday. Wow, look at that. Serious significant wave heights off the US East Coast. 34 foot in association with that storm that we were just tracking. So very significant waves. Um, Waves turning around to the east in the range of 4 to 5 feet. Tuesday might actually be a really good surf day with those east swells. Air temperatures upper 40s, lower 50s. That might be doable as long as it's not too windy. And then on into Wednesday, it looks like the surf for the Outer Banks builds up again to the range of around 4 to 6 feet in the near offshore environment. So it does look like good waves on tap for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week after a storm comes through today. And then we start to get some stiff northwest winds tomorrow and probably some chop and some cooler temperatures in the upper 40s. Although nothing too crazy like the big swing to chill that we saw, we're going to have to wait a little bit until things start to get warm again. And I might change the title of this OBX wave report to a surprise nor'easter for the weekend because that appears to be what's happening here off the US East Coast. So thank you for joining me for another session of the OBX Wave Report where we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. I get down to the beaches and give you guys another observation from the shores soon. It's the weekend time, so I can't really do as much. But I'm doing the best I can to give you guys the good information. And please remember to do everything you can to save our beautiful coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. The primary effort right now being to transition to clean energy. So thank you again, and I'll look forward to chatting with you guys shortly.